a lot of people from our group, the NCGR chapter, you're doing this workshop for in Florida, Miami, Fort Lauderdale, and all of Southern Florida, went to a conference in the Bahamas that I believe you,
Yeah.
Adam, and Julene
Yeah.
put on. And I would have been there if I hadn't been paying off medical bills. All right. But it
Yeah.
was supposedly so much fun. And when
We
was
had
that?
a blast, man. There was a storm that almost like derailed us, but we made it. The storm blew over and we got to see Venus and Mars with the moon, right there over the water. It was incredible. And I did a whole thing on the Venus Mars cycle for people, and that was my first standing ovation. I remember so clearly.
Really?
Yeah, people loved it, and it was a lot of fun. And then we did two more Sky Astrology conferences. One in 2018, we in Colorado. We were going to do one in 2021, but then COVID and everything. But we finally got that done last year in actually in Tybee Island, Georgia. Um, but yeah, this work with the retrograde loops came out of that because after Adam and I had been working on these cycles and stuff for a while, he shared with me about these loops, and he's like, okay, so because Adam was the one that first turned me on to the visual cycles, and then and it was at
Was it
hindsight.
through his
Uh,
work with Venus and Mars that Adam turned you on
yeah,
to it? Yeah.
with Venus in particular. And so he's like, okay, so now that you got, a hang of the synodic cycles, let me really fry your brain. Check out these loops that they do and what the WTF is going on with this. So dude, I got out my drafting tools, drew these things. And you had asked in the previous slide about Lee Lehman. She does play a part in this. It's
Oh,
it's
good.
really wild. Um,
Was she helping get a grasp, a
Yeah,
grip
she
on
was
the
really
loops?
key
Yeah.
because I had drawn these loops, and about the time that I thought I understood them, I said, "Okay, a typical Virgo moon kind of thing. Okay, I've been looking at like 100 years, drawing them, figure. Okay, I think I got it. Let me go back another 100 years and just make sure." And then at that time, things change, and I'm going, "What the hell? How am I ever going to understand this?" And so in the middle of that, Lee and Maggie were there in Asheville, right? And they were founding members of the Asheville Friends of Astrology with me and Kelly Lee. And they
And
needed,
Deborah Hellman was part of that too?
yeah, that's right.
Okay. All right.
Yep. And who else? Kim Manini she had connections to Florida too. Did you know Kim?
No, but
Yeah.
Deborah was like almost an honorary Floridian because of her
Yeah, that's right.
connections with Deborah Mills and Jeffrey Brock.
Okay.
Yeah.
So So they needed something moved, and I had a pickup truck, and they were like, "Oh, you can do it. Okay, great. Well,
Everybody
since
wants
you're,
to be your friend when you have
since
a
you're,
pickup
yeah,
truck.
you know what I'm saying." My father told me that early in my life when I was buying my first vehicle, and he was dead right. Um, but yeah, so they were like, "Well, since you're coming all this way, we'll fix dinner, and you can stay a while and everything." And so we're sitting there at the dinner table. And there's, a silence or whatever. And Lee goes, I remember. There's a book I want to show you. And she goes and gets the book and she's like, there's some stuff in there about synodic cycles, but there's this other thing in the back that I think you might like even more.
Was it the
And
Tables of Planetary Phenomenon by Michelson, or what was
no,
it?
nope.
No.
It was this book called Tantra Vidya by Oscar Marcel Hinza, this crazy German guy. And she told me this story about this guy. He sounds like a real like eccentric, and I mean that in a loving, like wonderfully eccentric person. And I looked in the back, and he had all these pictures of these loops,
Were
and
they
I
like
was
mandalas or sort of planetary
um.
mandalas? No, just loops.
No, literally like the different shapes that I had been drawing with my drafting tools and everything of the shapes that the planets make when you draw them out with longitude and latitude, there's
Amazing.
these looping shapes, but there's all kinds of them. And I was like, oh my, I was literally my think, that head exploding emoji, like, and I
Yep.
was like, can I please borrow it? And then I had to get it translated because it's in German.
How old is this book?
It's not that old. He's a contemporary
Does he
guy.
have a software program? I may have heard of this guy.
I'm not sure. He
Yeah.
he he was doing visual astrology stuff. He had a group of women that he was doing some kind of ceremonial visual astrology work. I remember her telling me that. And so I got the book from Lee, got it translated, and well, I got the part that I needed translated, and he was saying, you have to draw the loops. And I'm like, yes, I've been drawing them. And he said something about you'll think there's seven of them, but there's really eight. And I was like, okay, so that's all and so in making eight of them, it something clicked where I was like, because what happened was with the Venus loops, there was one loop which is literally like a Z shape, and it was going from below the ecliptic, and then it was stopping and going up across the ecliptic, and then back parallel to the ecliptic. It's like a Z shape.
Hmm.
What happened and I said, okay, and then there's five of them because Venus has five different retrogrades at any given time. And what happened when I went back the extra 100 years, now the Z shape, instead of going up, was going down. And I was like, okay, wait a second. If there's eight of them, maybe there's one up Z and one down Z, right? Which is two. And then there's three above and three below. And maybe this is all has to do with the nodes of the planet somehow. And turns out, lo and behold, that's what it was. Like basically the upward Z is when Venus is crossing her north node. The downward Z is when she's crossing her south node. And it turns out not only is it true for Venus, it's true for the rest of the planets. So for instance, during the pandemic, and I gave this talk that I'm going to give to Astrology South Florida. I gave this talk at UAC 18 in Chicago. And I said at UAC 18 in Chicago, the last time that Jupiter did this downward Z at its south node in Capricorn, there was a stock market crash. So does that mean in 2020 there's going to be another stock market crash? Like I gave a forecast. Do you know, dude, it was within 1 day of the exact contact of Jupiter crossing the ecliptic, the day after, that's when the COVID crash happened.
Amazing. And you're talking the Jupiter crash. Are you talking about 2008, September?
Yeah, there was a crash in
Yep.
2008, and that was Jupiter crossing its south. And then 12 years later, right, there's another. And I said in 2018, it's possible. It was a forecast, it wasn't a prediction.
Right.
I was but the forecast came true, and it was literally timed to 1 day. Now, imagine if I had known what the hell I was doing and I shorted the stock market. You know what I'm saying? I
You
mean,
would have four trucks. Yes.
exactly.
So you're going to teach people at the workshop how to draw the loops, and are you going to also go, people that aren't familiar with planetary nodes, will you be explaining to them what
Yeah,
they are and whether to, so people get very confused because do they do heliocentric nodes? Do they do terrestrial nodes,
geocentric. Yeah. Yeah.
And then
There's
not all software programs. So you're going to demystify nodes in the workshop, basically.
100%. Yeah.
And I just wanted to mention you'll be putting varied examples from birth charts, political elections, noted economic booms and busts, and sporting contests. Now, are some of the booms and busts you're going to look at, are they international or are they all centered
Well,
around
like
the
for
US?
instance, that was a global bust in,
Right.
in the COVID thing.
Oh
And
boy.
there was Saturn was crossing its node at the same time as Jupiter. That's why that one was so powerful. So yeah, we're definitely going to talk about that. And then there's also this plays into the Bitcoin chart. So for people who may be crypto enthusiasts, we're going to talk a little bit about that. So there's just a variety of things. I have an
Awesome.
example when Peyton Manning won his second Super Bowl, there's a really interesting example from that. I'm trying to think what other examples I have. But yeah, it's just I like to throw different things out there because not everybody gives a crap about the stock market or
Right. Or Peyton
Bitcoin.
Manning,
Or
yeah,
exactly. And so you kind of throw a variety of things out there and everybody will get a little taste of something that they like, you know?